going on, guys? Today I have, well, something pretty freaking awesome. I have my very first phone review, and this is going to be a little bit strange because this phone company recently said that they won't be producing phones anymore, and this is the BlackBerry Key 2 LE. Now, before I get into my review or anything, I do want to shout out to Tech Odyssey. He ran a contest and I was fortunate enough to win. This feels like it was about 10 months ago because it has been a long time. But I am finally getting around to my full review. When I came back to this channel, I did say that if I do phone reviews, I'm not going to focus too much on the specs. Now, I will throw them up for you. And I actually have the box here, and I'll probably just turn the box around and I'll read off what it has. We're looking at it's a 4.5-inch IPS display. It is a 1080 screen, 433 ppi if you care. It does have an octa-core 64-bit Snapdragon 636 processor, so obviously this is not a flagship, but you probably already know that if you're looking at this video anyways. You know that this is more of a mid-range device, something that's going to be a little bit easier on your pocket. There is a 13 megapixel and a 5 megapixel cameras in the rear, and then an 8 megapixel front facing camera, 3000 milliamp hour battery, and it is running Android, and I want to say it's on Android 8.1. I don't see it getting updated any farther than that, especially since BlackBerry said that they're getting out of the hardware game anyways. I hope that's not true, and you'll see why by the end of my review, I think. Hopefully, we'll see, I suppose. But going around the phone, this is actually probably one of the best form factors on a phone that I have held in my hands in years. And that does not include the Pixel 3, because I really like the form factor of the Pixel 3. But this, I've never ever had to worry about putting a case on this thing. I love the way it's built. Now, some people feel that you need, glass on the front and the back and aluminum or some sort of metal frame, and for it to feel good, for it to feel premium. To me, this feels premium. This feels, in this form factor, I would pay flagship prices for this form factor. Going around on I guess if you're looking at the phone, it's the right hand side. You have literally all your buttons. You have I don't know what they call this, to be honest with you, but this is a little optional button here that I'll get into in a second. And then you got your power button and your volume rocker. Across the top, you see that correctly, that is a headphone jack. Thank you, BlackBerry. On the other side, all you got is your SIM tray. This does have spot for a micro SD card, which is awesome. And then bottom, you got your speakers and a USB-C charging port, which I think is pretty much standard for any phone over the last, 3 years or so, outside of iPhones, obviously. And then on the front, you have that 4.5-inch display, which I honestly, I really like this display. I would like it to be a little bit larger, just because I think that's just where we are nowadays, is anything below like a 5.5-inch screen is small. But this does what it's supposed to do. I mean, it's a good display. It's a nice display. I can't really say anything about that. It is a good looking display. And then obviously you have an actual physical keyboard here, and I absolutely love the fact that they put a physical keyboard on this thing. I'm old school, and I remember my physical buttons, and I honestly miss them at times. So that is nice. And then around back, it has this little texture on it, and this is kind of a rubberized finish. It's a real nice finish. You definitely do not feel like it's going to fall out of your hand, which is nice, considering that there probably aren't a whole lot of cases for this anyways. But I honestly, I haven't had any issues as far as it feeling slippery or me thinking that it's going to fall out of my hand or anything like that. So that's awesome. I absolutely love that. Now, you may have noticed, or you may not have, but you may have noticed that on the bottom of the keyboard here in the spacebar is actually where they put the fingerprint sensor. And that is a fantastic place to put it, because I mean, that's kind of how you hold it anyways. You just throw your finger there and boom, it's on. The only thing I don't like about it is sometimes when you are grabbing it, I don't like grabbing my phone by my screen, so I always grab it by the keyboard when I grab this. And sometimes my finger slips to the spacebar and it unlocks it. It's not really a complaint, just a damn, you know, just kind of something that I do. Maybe something that you might want to look for if you end up getting this phone, or if you decide you want one. Now, this phone, did it say back here? It didn't say. This phone has 4 gigabytes of RAM, which honestly, it should be enough. Unfortunately, BlackBerry does have a lot of things that run in the background as far as their hub and their security stuff goes, and it does take up quite a bit of memory. It's not really a problem, but if you keep a lot of apps open at once and you kind of flip between them or whatever, you just keep them open, then you will get a little warning that says, hey, you're running low on memory. You might want to close some things down so your device can be running optimally, or something to that effect, something. Anyways, but you close out some of your apps, or you close them all out, and it's running just fine. Even when I would get that, I don't know, notification, I guess is what I would call it, not really an error, but even when I would get that notification, the device didn't seem to be unresponsive in any kind of way, or it didn't even really seem to slow down. It's just telling me that, hey, if you keep this up, if you keep opening things, it's gonna slow down. So you just take the notification, close down some apps, and you're good. I don't really play games too much on my phones. I do play Pokemon Go, and that ran just fine. I didn't have any issues. Maybe it was a little bit slower than, you know, the people around me's devices are, but it wasn't slow to, I wouldn't say it was slow to a fault. It was slower, but it wasn't really that big a deal. Honestly, anything that I threw at this, it kept up just fine. I averaged right around about 5 hours of screen on time, which is about average for me on most phones. I think my LG G8, I got around 5 hours, maybe 5 to 6. The only thing that I really got a whole ton of battery life out of is the Note 10 Plus, but I honestly should, with the size of the battery that is. Anyways, different video for a different day. Talking about the keyboard, we'll kind of stick with the keyboard for a little bit. It's something that you have to get used to, especially with everything being touchscreen these days. I don't think I've had a keyboard, an actual physical key, on a phone for like 5 or 6 years, something like that. And when I say an actual key, I don't mean just like the home key that the Galaxies used to have, or iPhones or things like that. I mean actual keys, like the touchpad or whatever on old flip phones. And when I first started using this phone, it's almost like my fingers were lazy and they felt really weak, because I actually had to push a button down to get a text out or whatever. So it took a couple of days for my fingers to get used to actually having to press buttons down again on my phone, which is really, really weird to say, but that's kind of the way it was. After those couple days kind of retraining my fingers, I guess, it worked just fine. The only thing that I had a problem with was how closely these keys are together, and a lot of times my fingers would press 2 at a time. Outside of that, it wasn't really that big a deal. I just kind of had to relearn how to touch the keys, I guess, so that I was more using like a corner or a tip of my finger as opposed to my whole finger. The only other thing that I guess is kind of a gripe or a complaint with this keyboard is each key has a secondary function. So like the V key is a question mark. So it could be a V, obviously, letter V, or a question mark. To get to the question mark, you hit the Alt button, and then you hit the key again, and then that takes you to the question mark. I don't know why, but I would always get the Alt button and the caps lock or shift button down here confused. To me, my brain just kept registering that the Alt button should be down here and shift should be over here. and I kept getting them flip-flop, and I don't know how many times that I had to go back and change a word that I read after my sentence was done because it made absolutely no sense. So that's something I had to constantly think about, and I actually had to stop myself in the middle of typing something to actually figure out what the hell I was doing. Now you can double hit the Alt key or double hit the Shift key. Shift key will go into caps lock. Alt will just go into the alternate whatever key. So it won't be the face keys, it'll be the alternate keys. I think that's really the only couple of gripes that I had with the keyboard itself. Now, I don't know if this is a complaint or just a me thing, but occasionally, not all the time, but sometimes when I would hit the keys, especially in this area up here, I felt like a little creaking feeling. I can't really describe it, but I think you know what I mean. It's almost like maybe two pieces of plastic rubbing together. I mean, it's not something that was all the time, and it's not something that was really audible. I couldn't really hear a creaking out of the keyboard, so it could have just been me. It could just be the way the keyboard's built, but just something to know, something that I noticed. There's a really cool thing that this keyboard does, and you can actually assign shortcut keys for any one of the keys here. So, for instance, for me, I use Twitter quite a bit, so I actually assigned a shortcut key. When you're on your home screen here, if you hit the shortcut key, it takes you straight to Twitter. So there's a whole bunch of different, you can literally assign anything that you want. There's an option in there that'll go through and it'll show you what you could change it to, and you could change it to whatever you want. Open an app, open whatever. I think I have Spotify. So it's nice to have so that I don't have to go through all my apps and find the ones that I use the most. And it's really convenient. Now, if I'm in Spotify and say I want to jump to Twitter, but I don't want to use any of these or go looking, there's a little, I don't know what you want to call this, maybe like a shift type key or something, but you hold this down and then you press the letter and then it jumps you back over. Same thing, hold that down and I'll press S, take me right back to Spotify. So that's really, really nice to have, especially if you have a handful of apps that you use all the time. So, I mean, if you are always in your email, you could set E to that letter and boom, you're right in your email. Speaking of that, now I kind of touched on, and I'm not going to go too in depth on this, but I touched on the BlackBerry security features that run in the background whenever this phone is running. A couple of things that are really, really good, because if you do work on your phone and your work is confidential in nature, there's two things that this phone has built into it that I don't really use them a lot, but they can be very, very useful and very, very helpful if necessary, if you need it. And I have them on all the time, and you might be able to see right up there where it says privacy shade. I don't know if you can or not, but when you go to expand that, it gives you two options here. It gives you a privacy shade and it gives you redactor. Redactor is exactly how it sounds. If you have a document open and you need to email it, but you can't send any like personally identifiable information, anything that's confidential in nature that shouldn't be going just over email without it being encrypted or anything like that, you hit redactor and it will let you redact certain things on whatever it is that you're sending. So that's nice. It'll black it out without you having to completely rewrite the text or whatever it is that you're sending. So that is insanely helpful. Now, privacy shade, that one is actually can be fairly helpful if you're in public and you don't want someone to see something that you're looking at on your phone. Again, like if you work and your work is confidential in nature, it gives you a little window here, and then the rest of your screen is darkened. It's not completely blacked out, but anybody that's peeking over your shoulder or anything, they're not going to be able to see anything that's outside of this window here. And this window can be adjusted in the settings to how wide you want it. And then you just grab the little eyeball here and you can drag that window up and down so you can see what it is you need to see. So if you're reading something, you just drag the little eyeball thing down and it goes down. And then when you want to get out of it, there's just a little exit button right here. I hit it on accident, but there's a little exit button right there. And it takes you out of it and back to a normal screen. So those two functions right there, if you keep your work email on your phone, those can be lifesavers, honestly. They could be job savers in some cases. If you're looking at something that not necessarily you should be looking at in public, you turn that on and boom, nobody can see anything that you really don't want them to see. So I really, really like the way that they have that set up. When I was going around the outside of the phone here, I mentioned this button here. And like I said, BlackBerry has a name for it. I don't remember what the name is. But this is it's like a multi-function button. And you can set it to kind of whatever you want. There's options that you could set it to. But I have said for years that I wish Android phones, and I know OnePlus, some of the OnePlus phones have this, but I wish Android phones had that same little button that iPhones have that just takes it from your standard ring to vibrate. So like when you're in the movie theater and you forgot to turn your phone off when you walked in the movie theater, you have your iPhone, you just stick your hand in your pocket, you flip the switch, and you're good. You ain't got to worry about nothing. Android don't have anything like that. You are going to have to disrupt whoever it is around you, take out your phone, turn it on, and put on Do Not Disturb mode or anything like that. So it's more of a convenience thing. For me, that's what I use this button for. I have it set to go through ring mode, vibrate, and then it goes completely silent. So it won't vibrate, it won't do nothing, and that's the way I like having it. That way I can go ahead and kind of sort of have a switch like the iPhones do. The only problem with that is you actually need to have the screen on for it to work. It won't work with the screen off. So that's kind of an issue, but at the same time it kind of isn't, just because the power button has these little ridges on it. So it's very easily identifiable between the volume rocker and the other multifunction button. So you could just hit the volume or the power button while it's in your pocket and then hit that, and then you have an actual tactile feedback when it goes into vibrate mode. So you'll know, all right, I'm in vibrate mode. I can turn my phone back off and enjoy the movie or wherever it is that you can't have your phone on ring. That actually brings me to the cameras, and I think that's where I'm going to wrap this review up. And the cameras are simply okay. Now, if you're in really good lighting conditions, they're decent. They're not great. You're not going to expect Pixel or Samsung or iPhone quality out of these cameras, but honestly, for the price, you probably shouldn't anyways. I didn't really touch on price, and part of that is because this phone is not super easy to find. As I recorded this video, or before I recorded this video, I looked on Swappa. I couldn't find it there. I found it on Amazon, but it's pushing around $400 to $500 used. I don't know if I would spend that kind of money on a mid-range device, but if it's something that you really, really, really want, that might be an option for you. I'll throw the link in the description, because it's not going to stay the same. That price ain't going to stay the same. They're used. So I'll throw the link in the description, and it'll have whatever the most updated price is for this phone. But getting back to the cameras, if you're in good lighting conditions, like my studio here, good lighting conditions, it'll take a decent picture. It won't be a bad picture at all. If you're in not so good lighting conditions, maybe even just in your house with your regular house lights on, they'll still be okay, but you're not going to win any awards for your photos with this thing. And like I said, you should probably expect that going in. I mean, flagship phones are pushing $1,000, $2,000 now, and this brand new, I want to say, was $399. So it's not really something you should expect. But if it's, you just want to get a quick picture of, your kids playing outside, or just something that you see real quick and you just want to grab a picture of it, this will work just fine. Just don't expect amazing, fantastic quality out of it, and I think you'll be perfectly okay. I didn't want to get too deep into the specs and all that stuff, because at the end of the day, the specs don't really mean much if the phone sucks anyways. They could stuff all the best things in there, best processors, the 32 gigs of RAM, and if the phone sucks, the phone sucks. It doesn't matter what the spec is, it ain't gonna save it. So I try to give examples of how I actually used it, and I tried not to stay in the specs too much. So hopefully this helps you if you guys are looking at a Key 2 LE, even if you're looking at it for like a backup phone in case your $1,000 phone breaks or anything like that. This is a solid device. I really can't say much bad about it. Even at the price, it's a very, very solid device, and I really do wish that more Android phones, or more phones in general, would take this form factor. It's nice and kind of square, so you have a place to actually pick it up, and it doesn't slide right out of your hand when you pick it up. It's a really nice form factor, and I'm a fan of it. I really, really am. And this is reminiscent of the Pixel 3 in a way. Not 100%, but in a way. Anyways, I'm rambling. I'm going on and on. If you're looking for a mid-range phone, if you're looking for a phone that has a physical keyboard, you're not going to go wrong with the Key 2 LE, as long as you can find it for a decent price. I personally wouldn't pay the $500 that it's going for on Amazon right now, but if you could find it for around $3 or less, I would definitely pick it up. 100% worth every penny at $300 or less used. If you can manage to find it brand new, then yeah, probably $350-ish, $400 is probably a good price. But I honestly think at about $300, worth every single penny. I really, really hope that eventually BlackBerry can find a way to start doing hardware again, because I really enjoyed using this phone, and just having that physical keyboard is kind of nice. It's refreshing. I'm not touching the screen all day. You know what I mean? I actually have something tactile that I can actually feel, and I can feel it being pressed. So anyways, personal preference, but if you're looking for something with a physical keyboard, this is probably a good way to go. Well, that does it for today's video, guys. I hope I was able to help you out in some kind of way as far as this phone goes. If you have any questions, something that I didn't touch on or anything like that in the review, any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comment section. I do my absolute best to answer those questions, comments, anything like that as soon as I possibly can. So throw your comment in there, and I will see you guys in the next video. I'm out.